you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by our in-house CIA operative, Jeff MD, author extraordinaire, aka 007, the one and only good guy from the CIA.
There are a couple more. They're all retired.
Yeah, true story. Don, man. Don qualified. He's a great guy.
Don worked for us for a while.
Yeah, 23 years or something like that. 23 years.
He did some stuff. We worked together on some things.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. So anyway, I changed things up a little bit, Jeff. Instead of doing the top 10 news articles or, breaking story, some of the stuff just keeps getting rehashed. So I trimmed it up. If we go out and we do a search, okay, what are the top 10 news items? And 3 or 4 of them are just repeats from the day before. I'm not going to mention them again and waste time. So
Trump got elected. Yeah, we know.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we've got half a dozen or so that we'll quickly cover before we get into the main story of the night. And to be honest with you, the reason that I chose the Bitcoin fiasco with the US Marshals, this is a lot bigger than what I thought it was. And there's just been some crazy stuff happening with it, but we'll get into that in just a second. So top 6 news items is what we ended up with for today. So these are not necessarily in any particular order, but these are the ones that are getting the most activity on social media sites. All right. So number 1, Trump's policy push and economic concerns. So this is a bunch of baloney, by the way. So this is what happens when legacy media crank up their machine, their Mockingbird media machine. So President Trump's recent moves, like considering returning 20% of Doge savings to Americans and meeting with pharma leaders over drug policy, are making waves as approval ratings slipping as worries about inflation and the economy grow, especially after a sharp Wall Street drop last week tied to tariff fears. We should probably address this, Jeff. So number 1, if you follow the trail on all these polls, you'll see that they oversample a group that is anti-Trump, anti-conservative, anti-American. So in this particular case, the polls that everybody's referencing for the most part in recent days are CNN polls that are asking CNN viewers what their thoughts are on things.
Well, and according to CNN, Kamala Harris is now the president of the United States because she was leading the entire time.
Right. I mean, you didn't get the memo? I mean, we got them.
I missed it.
So, but the next part to this is these fears over tariffs, which is all baloney and lies being stoked by Trump's opponents or, the people who hate Trump. I've spoke to this a number of times, Jeff, so I want to hear your opinion. Theoretical situation, which has the opportunity to potentially happen here. We nuke the IRS, we nuke income tax on Americans and businesses, and we charge other countries tariffs to have the privilege to sell their products in the largest, most sophisticated economy in the world. What's the end result for the American consumer, in your opinion?
Well, you're never going to get rid of the IRS altogether. Well, you may change the name and start a new one because you still got to have someone in charge of tax collection, whether it is sales tax, tariffs, whatever. If the government is going to take in money, which it's going to, somebody has to be in charge of doing that. Now, what you call it, what you change it to doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be an income tax. It could be a national sales tax, something like that. So there will always be an IRS, if even with a different name. But as far as the tariffs go, and I've said this from the start, Trump's idea on tariffs are a negotiating strategy. It is, if you're putting tariffs on our goods and we're not putting tariffs on your goods, that's not fair. So we're going to put tariffs on your goods. That's what he said, that whole reciprocity thing,
right?
Equivalent to yours. So if you don't want us putting tariffs on German cars, don't put tariffs on American cars. And these countries will, they may still keep it because the governments are addicted to the tax money, but then they're going to lose tax money at home because Volkswagen and BMW and Mercedes are going to have less sales in the United States and less profits for them to tax. And there's going to be more unemployment as they have to lay off people in those factories. And those companies are in a world of hurt right now. Anything. The last thing they need is to lose their biggest market. They have looked to China as their big export market, but the Chinese aren't stupid. They're going, yeah, we make cars too, and so we're going to put tariffs on your cars. Mm-hmm. And so we're their big market. And the Germans for 30 years have gone against developing domestic consumption. They have been an export-driven economy, which sounds good until people quit buying your crap. And you don't have a domestic market to really fall back on. And that's where they are right now. Plus, their energy costs are through the roof. Heavy industry is going down the toilet because they're not competitive. And if you're not competitive at home and you can't export at an advantage, you're in trouble, and they're in trouble.
Yeah, I brought this up, Jeff, just because I want to show people the order of magnitude here, and I've mentioned it a couple times. So we're going to hit close to 31 trillion this year for our GDP. China is going to struggle to get to 19 trillion. And the thing is, obviously, with the CCP in power, they limit other countries sending stuff to China. Almost everybody has a trade imbalance with China, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to hit close to 31 trillion. China's going to struggle to get to 19 trillion. Their economy is running on fumes right now. They're in deep trouble financially because demand for their products globally has gone way down in the past few years. So then you mentioned Germany, and that's the next one on the list, right? And I apologize for it being an eye test here. Let me see if I can't.
Yeah, as I sit there and do this.
Yeah. Let me see.
Well, and the thing with China is people think China is an export-driven economy, and they are. But what they're really exporting is labor. Right. They don't. They buy iron ore from Australia, and they smelt it using coal from Australia and Indonesia and other places. They don't have a lot of natural resources of their own. So what they're doing, and they don't have a whole lot in the way of innovation either. So what they're doing is they're taking products that somebody else designed, they're buying raw materials from other countries, and then they're putting it together in China using cheap Chinese labor, which is, hey, if that's what you got, that's what you work on. But the problem is now their population is shrinking just like ours, and most Western nations are. They don't have a massive labor force like they used to, and they have higher expectations. They're not going to work for $1 a day anymore. And ironically, they have high unemployment too, because a lot, like you said, they've lost a lot of their export advantage. And as other countries, like especially Europe, their economy contracts, they're not buying as much from China. So you have entire factories that used to sell cell phones to Europe. Europe ain't buying them anymore. So they're laying people off. So it's a weird, and plus they have a huge, ungodly huge domestic debt issue, which is I'm surprised it hasn't exploded already.
Yeah, so I mentioned this before, but I want to touch on it before we move on here. And as I've been mentioning, after us and then China, it falls off a cliff. Germany's not even 5 trillion, and every single country on there, with the exception of Brazil, just because I haven't looked Brazil up, but every other one on there, we have a trade imbalance with. They send more stuff to us than we send to them by an order of magnitude. So Canada, for example, accounts for 1.5% of our imports, and yet our exports account for 25-30% of theirs. So we're in a power position. We have the tools are all on our side. The leverage is on our side. But with China is in their news are telling people, look, 40% of our factories are closed right now because of the drop in demand. And I've mentioned Perry from ALP Generators. He said it's not 40% closed. It's 60% of their plants are closed, and people are leaving the cities in droves to go back to farming because it's the only way they can feed their families. So that's why I say China is going to struggle to get to that 19 trillion. And like you mentioned, they're sitting on a debt, bomb, just like we are, for lack of a better term.
And they have ghost cities where they have built scores of 30-story apartment blocks. And you look and they look like huge modern cities. Nobody lives there. One, they build them out in the middle of frickin' nowhere because some local government said, hey, if we do this, if we build it, they will come. Well, they didn't come because there's no jobs there, there's no factories. And so these buildings are lying empty. And a lot of them, or most of them, were financed. You had Evergreen and all these others, but they were underwritten by the local governments. And they tend to kind of push the debt bomb off as far as they can. But at some point, it's still going to blow up.
So, I mean, let's take a look at this just for the heck of it.
Oh, yeah, ghost cities, yeah.
Yeah, 34 unforgettable photos of Chinese uninhabited ghost cities. The only people who live in these cities are the custodians.
Yeah.
And
how much does it cost to build one of those buildings? And then you look, and there are 30 in that one frame of one picture.
Yeah, so I mean, here's an example right here. There's the custodian, but these places are completely empty. There's no businesses. There's no people that live there.
There's a dog.
Yeah.
There was a dog. So
massive expenditure, like you said. Look at this right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, at least 17 high rises there.
Yeah, with nobody in them.
Yep. So it's not a hyperbole or fake news or anything like that. They're literally empty cities, turnkey cities, ready to go.
Yeah,
but
and those for a bank would call that a non-performing asset. It took hundreds of millions of dollars to build those things, and they're getting zero money out of them. So they lose money every day just by having to pay the interest on the loans.
And so let's pick up on one more point that you mentioned that some people may not be aware of. China's population is actually in free fall. It's shrinking worse than ours is, and it's shrinking worse than ours is because of the one-child policy that they had for decades. People would have a child and it'd be a female, and they would euthanize it because they're only allowed to have one kid. So until they had a male baby, they would kill them off. And now the problem is, and the last number that I saw, Jeff, said that 40% of the men in China will never be married and never have children because that's so lopsided from this one child policy of the past.
Yeah.
It's all men. There's no women, there's no females.
India has the same thing. It's a cultural thing where the son takes care of the parents.
Right.
The daughter gets married off to her husband and she takes care of her husband's parents. Well, exactly. if you've got a one-child policy and you only have one kid looking out for you, you're going to make it a guy because he's the one that's working and everything else. The wife maybe staying home raising kids. Yeah, and so they have a huge deficit of females in every generation since the 1970s. So anybody there who's 50 or above, there's a ton more men. Chinese men who had the means were going to Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, Indonesia, looking for wives because there were no women back home.
Yep, exactly. So a little bit of a divergence on the news, but good information. Appreciate your input there, Jeff. So number 2 is the US Marshals Bitcoin fiasco. And I won't bother reading the paragraph there because that's going to be the main topic for chapter 1. Immigration application pause. Trump administration's decision to pause immigration applications from Latin America and Ukraine, reversing Biden-era policies, is stirring controversy. It's a hot topic as border security and migrants' rights clash. There's no controversy here. You have 70+%. I've actually seen polls say 80% of Americans are very in favor with Trump's deportation and immigration pause. So,
well, and historically, there was a time when we had, from the, I think, 1910s through the 60s, probably, we had almost zero immigration in this country because we absorbed tens of millions of people at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s. And the government said, okay, we're going to take a breath. We have to absorb these people and assimilate these people, something we're not worried about anymore. And so they said, no more immigration.
So I'm just thinking we had World War II, right? There was a ton of Europeans came over, but I don't know what that number is. And I'll see if I can't find it when we catch a break in between here. But it'd be an interesting, actually. So this number here says it was 42 million, but that seems pretty high to me. I'll look that up at another time.
Or after World War II or during World War II?
Yeah, after World War II. But I'll look it up. I don't know if that's entirely
during. We brought in a lot of Mexicans to work in agriculture and mining and things like that, because we drafted all the the white Americans. But then after the war, they said, okay, you made your money, time to go home.
So I want to explain some of the methodology here. So what I do is we have subscriptions to a whole bunch of different AI models, and some of them are very, very hardcore left. And you have to take everything that they spit out with a grain of salt. The only one actually that isn't hardcore left, but is still left leaning, would be Elon Musk's Grok on X. So you have to temper some of the results you get back from this. And the reason I say that is because when this says immigration application pause is stirring controversy, what's happening there is the AI is already leaning to the left to start with, but you also have a ton of content being published by their propaganda machine, the left's propaganda machine, the legacy media, whatever you want to call them. So it skews the numbers and makes it look like there's this big controversy when there's not. Like the one that cracks me up, and I haven't really gone too in depth with this, but you'll get a kick out of this. When Robbie Starbuck discovered what was going on with the DEI policies for Tractor Supply, and they did an immediate about face, because farmers are not your transgender LGBTQ, this, that, or the other thing, right? At all. Like, it couldn't be more of a disconnect. And we've explained that companies did that to get their ESG score to go up, environmental social guidance score, which is like social credit score for corporations. And we have a record lack of liquidity amongst major corporations right now. So they will pump up the ESG stuff by doing this DEI stuff so that they get access to lower interest on their lines of credit to pay their payroll and all those recurring expenses that are hitting every day. So what's funny about that is the Atlantic, which is owned by Steve Jobs' widow, did this big story on how Tractor Supply canceling their DEI program was going to put them out of business because the transgender farmers would no longer want to buy anything from them.
Both of them?
Well,
both transgender farmers?
You're close. So they did this interview with this person who quit Tractor Supply over them canceling their DEI. So an alphabet person, right? And they ran with this story saying, oh, they're also going to have a huge reduction in their workforce, 55,000 employees. We're going to have this huge reduction because of the people who support DEI will no longer want to stay with Tractor Supply. At the very end, they asked this guy, so how many of your fellow employees quit over this transgender thing? Well, I'm the only one so far, but there's more coming. That's how
yeah.
You can't make this shit up, right? So either way, when you go out and you try to ask anything out there, any entity, whether it's AI or a search engine, with the exception of the honest ones like Yandex, pardon me, you're going to get some pretty skewed numbers. So I have to comment on things like this. Is stirring controversy? Actually, no, it's not. But here's why it says that. All right, number 4, this is a problem. We've, spoke about it. We've been bit in the ass. I've been bit in the ass by it. AI generated photos hurting businesses. Small businesses, from bridal shops to hardware stores, are reeling from fake AI generated images, warping reality online. It's a growing headache that's hitting local economies and trust in digital content. So here's something for you to add to your thought processes, Jeff. We have tools out there like AIorNot.com, right? And you take a video or a picture, you drop it on it, and it'll tell you what the probability of it was being AI generated. Well, I did a test a few weeks ago just for the heck of it, where I used AI to generate images, and I dropped them on a whole bunch of these test sites. I want to say I hit somewhere around a dozen, probably more than that. And almost every single one of them said that the images were not AI generated. So the AI now is getting a step ahead of the AI detectors. And so you can't even trust the results that you're given that. I mean, my advice is you suspect something may not be on the level, you should probably dump it on every AI checker you possibly can. And when you finally get a hit, that's the one that's telling you the truth. So this AI stuff hurting businesses, absolutely. I've heard horror stories of somebody publishing a review and saying that the business, restaurant in this case, was busted by the local health department for unsanitary conditions, and they posted an AI generated image, and it had nothing to do with that particular restaurant. It was just somebody who was being a dick and had a hating for them. So it is a problem. Number 5. So here's another example of the news not being reported properly, or Mockingbird media blasting stuff out there. Pentagon budget shakeup. The Pentagon's ordered a $50 billion budget revamp to align with Trump's defense priorities. It's a massive shift that's got military and fiscal watchers talking about what it means for national security. So we're back to the military industrial complex belly aching that the, $9,000 that they've been charging the government for a toilet seat is going to have all these negative impacts on us. I think the worst has been the coffee cups. Did you catch that? The disposable coffee cups.
How much are they charging for those?
So there were different vendors. One vendor was charging them $1,400 per coffee cup. And they showed it, and it was, do you remember those old machines way back in the day that were in the hospitals that had those cones? Because they would drop the cone and then fill it with coffee. Do you remember the ones?
Or then they were replaced by the ones that had poker on the bottom of it. You had to look underneath to see if you had a full house or not. They're paper.
Exactly. And they fall apart. They dissolve, basically.
They're good for one cup.
So I think the cheapest I saw was $1,200 per paper cup, and $1,400 was the most. And this stuff is what gets me with the whole, Doge thing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If somebody's complaining about Doge, they're either benefiting, they're making millions of dollars off the situation, or they've allowed the legacy media to turn their brains into shit because they've been drinking too much of the legacy Kool-Aid. Either way, how could anybody in their right mind complain that we should not be ferreting out $1,400 paper coffee cups,
Yeah.
So anyway, next one on here, tax refund delays warning. Tax accountants are urging Americans to file early for 2025 refunds due to expected delays. With tax season kicking off, it's practical news hitting millions of wallets. I haven't had a chance to dive deep into that one. I don't know if you have, but
no, but I just say, okay, flip it. If you owe the government money, are they going to be delayed coming after you for it?
Yeah, probably not.
No.
Yeah.
What I always tell people, you should never want a tax refund, because that means you gave the government money for free with no interest.
Exactly.
They charge you interest, but don't give the government your money. You're giving them a loan with no interest to you. Ideally, you want to be where you pay to the frickin' penny how much you owe in taxes.
Yep, 100%. So, all right, let's move along here and get into the main story of the night, which is this debacle over Bitcoin with US Marshals. And it's a pretty interesting story. We got onto it one night last week because it turned up in, one of the top news items of the day thing. And so I'm just going to read some stuff that I wrote for the brief tonight. Sit rep. Anybody who wants to sit rep, by the way, just go to patreon.com/survival dispatch. It's $9.99 to sign up, $9.99 a month. And you get all of our daily sit reps. So highly curated newspaper where we've searched from the left to the right, everything in between, followed the money. We put the truth together. This is episode 410 tonight. And we've issued 3 retractions in 410 episodes. So we're batting pretty decent as far as getting the truth out there is concerned. So
better than The View.
Yeah, boy, howdy. And Joy Reid too.
Yeah.
You know, I see she was crying all over X today. It was pretty funny. Anyway, all right. So let's do some background on this. So the US Marshals Service's Bitcoin fiasco is a messy tale of mismanagement, missing cryptocurrency, and mounting questions about how a federal agency tasked with safeguarding seized assets could lose track of billions in digital wealth. So here's the kind of the high level overview rundown. So USMS responsible for handling assets seized during criminal investigations, including cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. Over the years, they've taken custody of massive hauls, think billions of dollars worth, from high profile cases like the Silk Road Darknet Marketplace bust in 2013. So prior to 2013, when Silk Road was a thing out there, anything and everything that is illicit, you could find it on the Silk Road. And because the whole concept was, hey, we're going to sell you this illicit stuff, potentially illegal stuff, and in many cases definitely illegal stuff, you don't want to use your credit card or debit card or anything like that, because you're going to have a paper trail back to this. So you need to pay in Bitcoin. And that's why they latched onto the cryptocurrency at that particular point in time. And people could go on the dark web at the time and they could buy things like steroids and, you know, every other kind of drug you can imagine. They could buy Glock switches, you know, to turn a Glock pistol into full auto, blah, 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 blah. And finally, you know, they got busted in 2013. So there's been virtually no oversight for this. So a Department of Justice Inspector General report flagged the USMS because they were relying on spreadsheets. This is in 2022 to track its crypto stash because the official asset management system couldn't handle digital currencies. Spreadsheets were a mess. Obviously, they have no controls in them. There's all kinds of opportunity to make mistakes and errors, not secure stuff at all. I mean, you can password protect the, you know, Microsoft Office file and you can crack it in less than 5 minutes flat. It's trivial stuff to do. So anyway, that started getting some visibility on it, though, when this Inspector General found out what was going on. And very predictably, Jeff, and you'll get a kick out of this if you haven't read this, the Marshal Service almost immediately said, well, it's got to be a hack by the North Koreans. Has to be a cyber attack from, and here's why. So the North Koreans are supposedly responsible for $308 million in Bitcoin theft in 2024. And so you've got people who are saying this is government incompetence, using spreadsheets with no checks and balances. And so it was incompetent. Then you got other people who are saying, well, because there were no checks and balances, you have employees have stolen large chunks of Bitcoin. And then you have the defenders who are like, we did nothing wrong. This is the North Koreans. It has to be because they have a track record of doing this and they have the motive and all this kind of stuff, right? So basically, what's happened to that is they took 69,370 Bitcoins from Silk Road. And when they didn't have the infrastructure to manage all these Bitcoins, that's when somebody blew the whistle, and we don't know who that is, and went to the DOJ and had it investigated. And keep in mind, by the way, that the US Marshals Service answers to the DOJ and nobody else. So they fall under that chain of command. So anyway, where that's ended up now is they're saying that could be anywhere from 5 billion to 16 billion, because they're not even sure of the original number of Bitcoins, because there's been no tracking, and they've done all of this with spreadsheets. So let me give you the high level overviews. North Korea. So North Korea is speculation that because of these other things they did. So February 24th this year, is closely paralleling stories they've been telling for the past 2 years. So you know how this goes down, right? We do the legwork, and then we we expose it a couple years later and see, we've been tracking this for 2 years, but no, we made it up 2 years ago, kind of like the Steele dossier, right?
Yeah.
So basically what that's resulted in, Jeff, is now North Korea has a well-documented history of hacking cryptocurrency systems to fund its regime. Just like go ahead.
Well, if North Korea was as successful at hacking Bitcoin as everybody seems to think they are,
Nobody would know.
well, it would be Singapore. I mean, they'd all be driving Mercedes Benzes and flying in Learjets. I mean, the billions of dollars. This is a country where probably the average, I don't know what the per capita annual, pay is probably in the hundreds of dollars.
Right.
And then you dump, trillions or billions and billions of dollars into that economy, it would show.
So coming from high tech myself, I can tell you the best of the best at this stuff, they not only never get caught, they're not even detected.
And they're not North Korean.
Yeah, correct. Although North Korea supposedly has this triad with China and Iran, to attack us. I may or may not, but they're not the player that they're being made out to be. So they're saying that North Korea has this thing called the Reconnaissance General Bureau,
right?
And it's
intelligence.
That's right. Yeah, you would know that. So they're saying that they've pulled off some of the biggest crypto heists on record. They stole $625 million from the Ronin network in 2022, $308 million from DMM Bitcoin in 2024, supposedly, right? They haven't. Yeah. This is not stuff that's been determined in a court of law. It's not been forensically proven or anything like that. So they're saying that they nabbed over 3 billion coins over time. That accounts for, a gazillion dollars now. And our intelligence agencies are now telling us that the North Koreans have done 47 of these thefts. 47. Kind of sounds like 51 intelligence agents. That laptop is not real, So at the end of the day, you've got crappy SOPs, crappy way of tracking the stuff, no way to secure it at all, doing this on spreadsheets. My personal opinion is that there's probably multiple factors and it's not just one. There's also all kinds of stuff that's shown up on X, by the way, called Tornado Cash. You can look it up. And I would bet money that it's an astroturfing campaign originated from inside one of our intel agencies to make it look like the North Korea is really up to this stuff, because that's what it is. It's all people posting, one thing after another about North Korea pulling off this heist, astroturfing. All right, so moving beyond that and North Korea. So the next question is, okay, well, was it an inside job? And the potential that it was an inside job. It's funny. I read a report said it was a juicy theory, but nobody in the US Marshals Service would ever do that. Okay. I don't know if I believe that. I don't believe that, to be quite frank. So this seems like a massive opportunity, if you ask me, right? That if you have somebody who's supposedly an expert in tech and sees that billions of dollars of Bitcoins are being tracked in spreadsheets that have no security, no chain of, command, no nothing at all, I think that that's a really high probability of that. And so if you go out and you look for news on this, this got sparked because of this inspector general who discovered this, but this has been sitting there, Jeff, for 12 years now.
Yeah. I mean, this, like Mike Sterling always says, don't attribute to evil what can be explained by incompetence. And it would not surprise me that somewhere in the bottom of a drawer of a desk somewhere is a hard drive that has all the Bitcoin data on it. And some guy retired and didn't tell anybody what it was. And so it's sitting there gathering dust. And it's probably about a week away from being tossed in the trash. I know a lot of federal marshals guys, good dudes to the man. I'd never met one that I thought was sketch, but they are slap the cuffs on the bad guys kind of people. I'm not saying they're stupid or anything. But this high tech, Bitcoin stuff isn't their focus. It's not what they do traditionally. And so if someone handed it to them, they'd probably treat it like any other piece of evidence and put it in a filing cabinet or a four-drawer safe somewhere. And it would sit until a trial. And if there was no trial, there it would sit forever. It's like you go into the property room of a police station, especially a big old police station like a New York or a Chicago or LA, and probably somewhere in the back is a banker's box with $1 million in it because nobody opened the box once they shoved it back on the shelf. So I'm reluctant to say there's all this deep corruption. Now there might be one guy who figured it out and took it. So what you need to do is look at the guy who had access to it and then retired and is now living in the Bahamas on his own private island. That's the guy you should be looking at. But some guy who retired and is living in suburban DC, he's living out in Winchester, Virginia and he's got the same house he bought 30 years ago. It's probably not him. Because if you have access to $1 billion, you're not going to be living in a little ranch style home in Winchester, Virginia.
Right. So
kind of what's the point,
I put together a fairly extensive write-up on the Silk Road, but I don't think we need to burn up any more time discussing it.
But they just pardoned the guy anyway.
Yeah. So I kind of distilled this down to 5 different areas, Jeff, and I'll go through all 5, and then whichever one tweaks you to comment on is fine. So number 1, because this Inspector General discovered that there's been no accountability, no tracking at all on these Bitcoins, which, by the way, if we had all of the Bitcoins seized from Silk Road, and then there was a second instance as well, and the guy's name was just X. They just called him X, which is kind of ironic. But between the two of them, you're now talking Bitcoin that would be worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Okay. So that forced somebody from the Marshals Service to basically step forward and say, look, we can't account for all these Bitcoins for all the reasons I've already given. Okay. But check out the second thing that's coming out of this. And this is what really tweaked me and made me decide to put this in chapter 1 tonight. The pundits are now saying that Trump's crypto reserve plan has now been thrown into doubt. So him pushing for a U.S. crypto reserve, think tens of thousands of Bitcoin, just like Fort Knox. If the gold's still there, think of a digital Fort Knox full of Bitcoin, right? Well, now it's hit a wall with this fiasco, they're saying. They're saying that the USMS was supposed to manage seized crypto, but we don't know where it is stance has lawmakers and pundits asking if they can't already handle what's theirs, how can they build a national stockpile? It's a policy headache that's got the administration scrambling. So I personally think this was a good part of this is organized disinformation to try and derail something that Trump was trying to do with this national reserve. So
it could be. I mean, but the thing about the Bitcoin and the Marshal Service is, all right, say you arrest the guy, say the head of Silk Road, can't remember his name, Holbrook or whatever his name was, and you see all of his crap, and one of the things you seize is his numbered Swiss bank account. You've got the number and the password. If you lose the number and the password, do you really have a bank account? The money's still there, sitting in the bank. The bank's still loaning it out, making money on it. But the point is, you can't retrieve it. And I have a feeling that's kind of what happened with this Bitcoin stuff. Is they lost the data, not the Bitcoin itself, but how to retrieve the Bitcoin. It's like that guy who he threw away a computer and all of his Bitcoin data was on the hard drive, and he was actually trying to get permission to excavate a landfill in Ohio. Because if he finds this thing and can recover the data, it's worth $1 billion now. But it's that kind of thing. If you lose it, it's like having an account. If you lose the password, the account's useless. And I really think it's just incompetence. I think you had people in charge of evidence handling who had no clue what they were dealing with and didn't know how to safeguard it.
Well, I don't disagree, but I think back to Nancy Pelosi saying, never let an event like this go without being leveraged, right? And so I'm not saying that
manual, never let a good crisis go to waste. Now they may be using that to against Trump for
that's
his
what I'm
whole,
saying.
yeah. But that's like saying, well, someone robbed a bank once, so you should never save money.
If Trump cured cancer tomorrow, they would say they want their cancer back.
They would. If Trump walked on water, they'd say the headline would be Trump can't swim.
Yeah, exactly. So Ross Ulbright was the guy's name, by the way, who ran Silk Road for a couple of years. He had 4,000 vendors selling stuff on there. And again, what they took from him in Bitcoin, it was like 16.9 million Bitcoin just from him alone. It's a huge number, but getting back to I put these 5 potential possibilities together. So number 1, we've obviously got potential incompetence, right? Number 2, weaponized against Donald Trump's plans. Number 3, this kind of, in my opinion, leads a little bit to the less than honorable intentions. So Cynthia Loomis, a senator, and she's big into crypto. She's a big advocate for it. She told the USMS that she wanted a full accounting of their Bitcoin stash and what they plan to do with it. And she demanded that by January 31st this year. And they didn't turn over the information. And all they've said was, yeah, we'll see what we can do, with no promises. So are they trying to hide their incompetence? Are they trying to hide, thievery? Are they trying to hide something else? Probably a little bit of everything, right? So that's 3 things. The 4th one would be the North Korea hack. And they keep saying, this is the one that just keeps gaining traction. They stole 1.34 billion in crypto last year. We don't have any proof, but we put this number on it, 1.34 billion. I kid you not. That's exactly what it says in the report, but we don't have proof of it. But we know they stole 1.34 billion. All right. And the last one would be insider theft. So, did somebody do this? So there was a guy named Sean Bridges, okay, who was a government employee. He stole a chunk of the Silk Road Bitcoins in 2015 and got caught for it. And he must have been really incompetent to get caught because there were no checks and balances in place at all. So that's basically where the 5 different, potential explanations that could be at play. My opinion is it's a little bit of everything. There could potentially be some hacking at play. Was it the number 1 reason? No. There's incompetence at play. Is it the number 1 reason? Probably, would be my bet. Did somebody skim internally? Probably. But if somebody was skimming internally, and then again, people are greedy, but you'd think you'd skim just enough to have a nice, comfortable life without going overboard, because the more you steal, the more likely you're going to get caught with those transactions. So that's how I see it, Jeff. I think it's a
steal it all. You steal it all at once and say, oh my God, we have no idea where it went. And as long as you're not stupid and go out and buy a yacht the next day, you just might get away with it because nobody else knows how to find it or look for it or trace it.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it's just interesting timing, I think, Jeff, with all this Doge stuff going on, that other stuff like this is being ferreted out. And I'm like this close to saying I've lost complete and utter faith in our federal government to manage anything without stealing from us or having it stolen from them.
They couldn't manage a lemonade stand without screwing it up.
Yeah. So I've just got a couple articles just quickly. I think I'll get 3 of them here, and that'll be it for chapter 1. But this article caught my eye because they make this claim that the agency's been plagued with procedural and organizational issues for years. And you can go grab it on coindesk.com, or you can just go grab our brief for tonight, and it's in there. So I'm just going to hit on these top ones here. So we know they can't account for the Bitcoin. They're saying that the organization's been, kind of, I don't know what the word is, disorganized maybe is the right word. And they're saying, what I read on this, Jeff, is that the requirement for their employees to report to an office haven't existed since COVID. So you're right. So now they've become very decentralized, although Elon's forcing them to go back to work. Trump's forcing them to go back to work. So you have all these people now that are spread all over the place and not necessarily working hand in hand like they would have in the past. So they're saying that that's contributed to the left hand not knowing what the right hand's been doing. And they claim that they've been trying to remedy, these problems, but they can't show any evidence that they actually did that. I think it's a perfect storm for what Doge and Elon Musk are uncovering. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. You have zero oversight. You don't see your employees every day. You don't even know if they're showing, if they're, they just say, yeah, I did this week. Okay. You have to believe them. Yeah, it's just stupid. No business would run that way.
Did you catch Elon's and Trump's response to people belly aching about the email? Trump said Elon suspects that many of the people who are getting paychecks don't even exist, and it's all fraud. And if we send them an email and they don't respond, that's the first red flag that we should probably check them out. And we're pretty convinced we're going to find out that these are make-believe people. So,
well, or they're real people who sit on their asses and do nothing. And I can't mention names for obvious reasons, but I worked in an office where there was a guy who was very senior, got paid a lot of money, but he was getting ready. He was going to retire, and he knew he was going to retire. So he sat in his office and read the newspaper every day. That's all he did, because he knew by the time they went through the process of firing him, he would already be retired. So his last year, he was breathing our valuable oxygen and doing nothing. He was a complete oxygen suck.
Amazing.
That happens. And if you'd asked him, what have you done in the last week? He couldn't give you 5 things that he'd done in the last year.
So let me give you another angle before we wrap up chapter 1 here. This senator, amongst others, are saying that when the Marshals Service sold some of these Bitcoins, they could not have sold it for less money, that they purposely sold it at the bottom. And if you watch digital currencies, Bitcoin's more stable now, but it's not unusual to see them spike, drop off, right? Well, they instead of, buying low and selling high, they've been selling low, which now people are interpreting that as, okay, well, they don't want to leave a trail that shows that they necessarily stole this, but they bought Bitcoin for pennies on the dollar because the US Marshals Service is so inept at picking the right time to sell. So more conspiracy theories that go with that.
Well, they're not buying anything. They're seizing. But if you know it's very volatile, you sell it when it's low, and your wife buys it, or your buddy buys it, or you buy it.
And that's what's been happening.
Wait for it to go back up, and then you sell it.
Well, and that's what's been happening, right? So that was exactly what the last article was going on about, in that they couldn't have done a worse job picking the worst time to sell it. They sold over 100 and something million Bitcoins last year, but every single time they sold it, every time they sold it, they sold it at a big drop and didn't maximize their money, which again is leading to I think of it as money laundering in this way, right? There's a lot of gentlemen's clubs, strip clubs, whatever you want to call them, are a money laundering operation, because they can claim money on their income tax that they gain from illicit activity and say, well, yeah, we had a really good, year last year. We had a lot of patrons come, and they always pay cash, and, they scrub it that way. And this, when I first read that, I thought to myself, that's probably what's going on here. We'll make sure that we sell it the absolute lowest to somebody that we know, so they could literally sell it the next day, double their money.
Or even better, okay, they've got that much Bitcoin. If they dump it all at once, what happens to the price of Bitcoin?
Yeah,
it goes
true.
down. And if you know it's going to go down, you wait for it to go down, then you buy it. And then it'll level out again and go back up, and you've just cleaned up.
Well, hold on a second. You're not suggesting that anybody would engage in insider trading in Washington, D.C., are you?
Well, the one thing that the Marshal Service has going for it is none of them are members of Congress.
Right. But they're
So
still
other than that,
still a government
you need
agency.
to find out if Nancy Pelosi has any relatives inside the Marshal Service.
Isn't that the truth? Freaking crazy. But all right. So that's it for chapter 1 tonight. It's no surprise. This story to me is no surprise. As I was studying it, I was thinking to myself, how many more of these situations are going to come up? And how long does it take before the American public starts to ignore it? Yeah, it's like a daily occurrence, right? And then people get numb to it. Exactly.
It's always there in the background.
All right, so we got a quick message from Sawyer Products. We'll be right back.
The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
All right, so we're into chapter 2 now. I think we've got maybe a dozen, 15 different headlines that we'll go through. And the first one here is related to all of this fraud and mismanagement. So breaking news, House Speaker Mike Johnson just said that Elon Musk is inside the federal agencies with new algorithms crawling through spending transactions. Tech bros are going to save our budget. Elon is in the middle. He's in the belly of the beast. 48 seconds.
And the Congress who could have oversight. The problem is, for decades, as we know, we haven't been able to do that job well, because even though we requested the data and requested the insight, it was hidden. How many of you know the bureaucracy was not forthcoming, right? They're not transparent. That's the whole point. That's the problem. That's the deep state we talk about. So they were hiding from Congress. We didn't know that USAID was funding drag shows in Peru or whatever, transgender operas in Colombia or whatever, it's madness. But Elon has cracked the code. He is now inside the agencies. He's created these algorithms that are constantly crawling through the data. And as he told me in his office, the data doesn't lie. We're going to be able to get the information. We're going to be able to transform the way the federal government works at the end of this. And that is a very exciting prospect. It is truly a revolutionary moment for the nation.
So thoughts on that, Jeff, using these very unique algorithms, looking for patterns in all of what we will refer to as big data?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but I think Johnson's a little disingenuous. And it's like, you didn't know about this because you didn't ask. You didn't ask where the money goes. You just gave him $40 billion a year. And, that is legislative malpractice. And, I understand it's a huge budget and you can't look at everything, but come on. You hire some IGs that look into this shit and then come up with here are the 100 strangest things that we funded last year. Do we want to keep doing it? And a lot of this crap, people should lose their jobs over. But I do love the fact that now we have smart people with computers crawling through these systems, and these systems are designed to be opaque. They don't want people looking looking under the hood. This is, Wizard of Oz, ignore the man behind the curtain. And, they complain about these 20-something-year-olds. It's like, they have no skin in the game. They have no legacy to protect, nothing. These are exactly the people we need to go through this. And if okay, we throw out the odd baby with the bathwater along the way. Well, you rescue the baby and put him back. But for the most part, I would rather fire 1,000 people and have to rehire 10 than fire 10 people and have 990 I don't want around.
So I read an article that referenced Ron Paul on the topic you just raised, and it basically said that he asked for this stuff years ago, to hire a team to come in and audit this stuff and really figure out what's going on. And he was stonewalled at the time. And one of the ways that he was stonewalled was that he was told, and you've attested to this yourself, and I'm familiar with it as well, that the systems being run by the federal government are so disparate, meaning they're so different, that they tried to make this claim there's no way that you could get through it all because there's no commonality of systems. And I can draw a parallel for people who are, at least my age and older. And Jeff, I'm assuming you remember, there was a point in time when we were young where you could not call every single house or business in the entire country because of different telephony systems, right?
Right.
And that was a real thing. So for example, if somebody lived in some remote rural location and they had a small telco, and that telco had bought hardware from Acme Inc. and some other, area that was serviced by another telco, if their equipment wouldn't talk to that equipment, you couldn't call between those two exchanges. And it's actually, it's so Honeywell tried to tackle this, right? They came up with this thing called Multics, MULTICS, and they brought everybody to the table, Ma Bell, AT&T, the whole 9 yards. And they were trying to build this software that would run on everybody's hardware so we could all make phone calls across the country, regardless of who, these telcos used, what equipment they used. And then the whole thing fell apart. And when it fell apart, Dennis Ritchie and Ken Thompson at AT&T Bell Labs created Unix, which stood for Unmultics at the time, right?
Right.
And but the only reason I mention that is that's the excuse that was given to Ron Paul by the bureaucracy. None of these systems talk to each other. Some of them are decades older than others. It is what it is, right? We've got this spaghetti, mess of all these systems. And that's just not true now that you have somebody like Elon's team in there, knowing how to sift through all of this information, essentially. So
that's been like with cell phones, for example. There's all these different cell phone things back in the day. There was, TDMA, which is time division multiplexing, CDMA, code division multiplexing. They were all different methods. And if a company went with TDMA, their phone could not contact directly someone who used CDMA. But they could still go to a switch, and then that switch could do it. So you could still make the call.
Right.
That's why your AT&T phone could connect to somebody using a MCI phone or whatever the hell else it was back in those days. And they used to have digital phones for home, and then they had analog. You had the old Rotary switches. If you had a dial phone, that was an analog system, actually invented by an undertaker, believe it or not. Because there were two. It's a funny story. There were two. I think it was in Nebraska. There were two funeral homes in the same town, and one of them, the guy who ran it, his wife was the operator. So when people would call in to say my grandfather died, and she would immediately tell her husband, and he would contact, I understand your grandfather died, let me handle the services. Well, the other undertaker is going, well, this sucks, I'm getting aced out. So he actually invented the dial so you could call directly to the mortician or the coroner or whoever and not have to go through the operator.
Yeah, central switch.
The loss of physical human operators in the United States was in response to corruption.
So perfect timing using the word corruption. So the page I have up right now, I'm going to come back to it in just a second. I want to show everybody what doge.gov looks like. So DOGE.gov, doge.gov. So everything that the Doge team is doing, they're posting it on here as it happens. So for example, 27 minutes ago, this post just went up on the DOE site. So the Social Security admin completed the same software audit initial findings, 4 redundant survey tools ranging from $118,000 to $1.8 million a year, paying for 10,000 UiPath licenses, only using 5,011, paying for 20,600 Tableau licenses, only using 11,560, on and on and on. Agencies often have more software licenses than employees, and this is Microsoft's thing, right? They did this for years, and the licenses are often idle, paid for, but not installed on any computer. For example, at GSA, 13,000 employees, 37,000 WinZip licenses.
Jeez.
And so just to back up briefly to Microsoft, and that's why I leave this up on screen. So the reason that Microsoft, the first time they were convicted under the Sherman antitrust laws, is they went to HP, Compaq, which wasn't part of HP at the time, IBM, Dell, all of them, and said, we're going to make your life really easy. For every computer that you ship, you're going to pay us $50 for Microsoft Office, Microsoft Windows, regardless of whether you put it on the system. This is how they were trying to squash competition, because some of the vendors were looking at Linux and other operating systems, and they said, well, wait a minute. Why are we going to pay you for a Windows license for every system that we put out the door? And Microsoft turned around and said, because if you don't do that, we're going to charge you $150 per license, which is 3 times what everybody else in the industry is paying. And you're working on 5 gross margins, so you'll be underwater. And that was the first time they got convicted on it. So there were literally companies out there would pay for Microsoft Windows licenses that they never used. They was never installed on the hardware. And again, they got busted for it. So that's an easy way for software companies to rip people off. But check this out. Here's another one earlier today.
Well, Microsoft is basically legalized mafia.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know how much they paid in federal income tax since they were founded?
Probably nothing.
0. True story. I could go down that rabbit hole, but I won't. But here's an interesting post that was made last night. Shout out to a follower who tipped us off on a wasteful building services contract. As a result, today we terminated the contract for convenience and have recorded savings of $40 million. And this list just goes on and on, like the fraud that they're finding. It's all being posted. Somebody in the legacy media was trying to cut up Elon and saying, we don't even know what you're doing. And he's like, you're joking, right? Like every single thing that we do gets published.
Go to my website.
Yeah, there could not be more transparency, as he said on his part. So check this out. This was February 21st. So 3 days ago, 95 cancellations with savings averaging $115 million each. And the most expensive one, $235 million, including 2 USDA contracts, one for a food and nutrition service, 3-day leadership retreat in Atlanta.
Jesus.
So 3-day conference, $265,000, $30,000 for a Malaysia study tour facilitation service. Sounds like a vacation to me.
Well, the government, having worked in the government 26 years, we would have analysts at headquarters, and these are all these brainiac PhD types. And our fiscal year ended September 30th. And so everybody pinched pennies until the second half of the fiscal year. And then they're like, oh, crap, last thing you want to do is not use up all of last year's money, because then that'll affect next year's money.
Yep.
So all these analysts and these PhDs, they always kept in their, and they always laughed. They said, it's always in the bottom drawer on the right side. These are proposals to go to a conference in September, preferably late September. And it could be in Australia, it could be anywhere. So if there's money left over, the managers would actually say, okay, looks like we've got, $190,000 surplus for this office. Do you have any? If you have any proposals, do it now. And these people go, I need $8,000 to go to this conference in Vienna, or I need $8,000, or I need 10 grand to go to this conference in Tokyo. And they're like, okay, that'll knock it down. And they would fund all these things so that at the end of the year, they could say, we spent all of this year's allotment of money We need the same amount next year plus 5% or whatever.
Yeah.
And that happened all the time. And we called them, they were rightly called boondoggles. Does anybody have a boondoggle for, in September? And it's amazing how many conferences were scheduled for the last half of September every year, because they knew they would get an influx of spending for people going to the conference just so they could burn through their budgets. And they always made them in Hawaii or Australia, always. It was, let's put it this way, it was never in Kansas.
Right.
It was never in Afghanistan. It was never in Ulaanbaatar. It was always in these garden, the vacation spots. Because it's the end of summer, people want to go sit on, and if there's a beach, all the better.
Yeah, too funny. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, man. When you have that kind of money, we had this thing in Sun that the IRS busted up. It was called PDF funds, partner development funds. So 2% of everything that was sold in a territory this quarter went into a bucket of money next quarter to be spent on demand generation activities. And invariably what would happen is you'd get towards the end of the quarter and the EVPs would be like, hey, y'all still have 50 million sitting in this territory and 100 million over there. You got to spend it, because if the money didn't get spent, the higher ups would go, we gave you all this money for demand generation. Why didn't you spend it? And so invariably what would happen is it would get down to my level and you'd start making phone calls. Hey, we only got a couple weeks left in the quarter. Would y'all like to do a customer appreciation event? Yeah, we just did one last week. Y'all gave us like $150,000 for it. Oh, okay.
Want to do another one?
Do you want to maybe rent a yacht with all expenses paid for you and 30 of your family members, and just send me an invoice and say that it was a customer appreciation event? It'd be $250,000 for one of those gigs on a weekend. Okay. And eventually the IRS shut it down because they said it was undeclared income, because it was just being spent like drunken sailors. Literally.
It's be honest. And what amazes me in the private sector that they do that, but pharmaceutical companies are notorious for that. They would take a bunch of doctors to the Bahamas to go deep sea fishing. Oh, and if you happen to prescribe my drug, Ozempic, whatever, pick your poison, all the better. And there was actually a movie about it, and it was kind of interesting. It was called Love and Other Drugs, and it was about Viagra when it first came out, about how they were paying doctors to prescribe Viagra. It's actually really good. Jake Gyllenhaal and Anne Hathaway, the main people in it.
Too funny. All right, so this video here, this person made a video looking at all the tools that Doge has put together. It's 2.5 minutes. I won't play the whole 2.5 minutes, but this speaks to the doge.gov site that I showed everybody.
We are the government now, and we're going to look at 3 different tools for citizen reformers that you can use today. First is Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency. Doge.gov allows you to track Doge's progress and their fines. They provide a variety of tools, though, looking at each agency's overall spending and savings that they have found, including individual receipts, such as this disbursement to Politico for like $250,000. And you can go and basically look at all the details on this on the federal spending system if you want. They also provide federal agency spending breakdowns and regulatory breakdowns by agency. Really cool. And of course, it's at Doge on X. Another important tool is AI.gov, which is perhaps the first crowdsourced policy platform allowing for users to vote on different policies that are created and voted on by the users. I created one here for the Balanced Budget Amendment, which is something I care about. But I think we can all see a future where this type of policy reform is going to be the norm and not the exception. And the AI.gov agent on X actually is an AI bot that interacts with users to help create new policies and be part of that discussion. I think this is really, really cool, and I do think it's kind of the future now. Then there's Data Republican, which we see a lot retweeted by Elon and others. Data Republican has provided an incredible platform here to be able to go out and search for federal grants and really do much, much more than that. You can also go up, and if you look at the little menu at the top, Data Republican provides the ability to go in and look at all these charities and how they link to one another with funding in an extraordinarily complex graph, but it's really cool. You can look at all the different.
Did you catch that right there, Jeff? Right above my cursor. Look at.
William Crystal. Yeah, he's
Bill Crystal.
dick.
Imagine that. The guy who
That's
founded.
my opinion. I don't want you to get a strike for me calling Bill Crystal a dick. That is me personally calling Bill Crystal a dick.
Oh, that's an understatement. But all right, so moving along here. And again, we've got a fairly short chapter 2. I think we've only got about another 7 or 8 and we'll be out of chapter 2. So polls show that Doge is overwhelmingly popular and government spending should be reduced by at least $1 trillion. So Libs of TikTok says this new poll is absolutely devastating to the Democrats. Doge is extremely popular by huge margins. They screeched about it for weeks on every show and publication, but the American people didn't fall for it. Just shows how irrelevant. So these numbers that come up are pretty darn conclusive. So do you believe the current level of U.S. federal government debt is unsustainable or sustainable? Well, 2/3 on that one. Do you think the U.S. government should move in the next few years to balance the budget, or is that unrealistic? 83% want the country to move in that direction.
100%.
To reduce budget deficits, do you think we should mostly need to reduce government expenditures or to increase taxes? 83% reduce government expenditures. Like this is the anti-democrat, communist, anti-rhino as well program. Next one.
This is what Americans do. If your own budget in your house, costs are going up at your salaries, not you cut your expenses. You cancel your cable. You eat macaroni and cheese 3 nights a week or whatever it is. You cut your costs. Only the government says, yeah, we're short of money, so we're just going to tax you more or borrow it.
Exactly. Do you think that we are in need of a full examination of all government expenditures, or should we not get in the way of current contracts and expenditures? 77% want to see that corrected. So next one up, 7 in 10 voters think government expenditures are filled with waste and agree with cutting $1 trillion expenses. Do you think that the government expenditures are basically fair and reasonable, or do you think they are filled with waste, fraud, and inefficiency? 70% says waste and fraud. Do you support or oppose the goal of cutting $1 trillion government expenditures? 69% support it. Most voters agree with having a government agency dedicated to efficiency and that the Doge is helping to make major cuts. Do you think there should be a U.S. government agency focused on efficiency initiatives or not? 72% in favor. Do you think the so-called Department of Government Efficiency led by Elon Musk is helping make major cuts in government expenditures or not? 60%. So I saw a really interesting thing today on Doge, by the way, where they did surveys in European countries, and every single European country, the response was, well, Doge is working so well for the Americans. We want it for our governments now as well. Not surprised.
We need to give credit to Milei in Argentina for doing the exact same thing before we did. A smaller scale, but still, he cut entire government, branches of government.
He slashed and burned.
Oh yeah, and took a chainsaw to it. But what I would like to see is Doge put up a website that says report government waste, fraud, and abuse at this site. And even if it's local stuff, they say, okay, that's not us, it's the city of Boston. We're going to forward that to the city of Boston. And that way, if the city of Boston does nothing about it, you can go, we told you about it 6 months ago. You've done nothing. Why are you still in office?
Yeah. So Doge.gov does that. It allows you to submit.
But I think it's mostly for federal. It needs to be across the board. I mean, if your county dog catcher in Pine Bluff, Arkansas is making $150,000 a year, you're going, okay, wait a minute, that's not right. There needs to be, government employees, and I was one, don't get me wrong, but they should not be earning more money than the people who are paying them. But they all do.
Oh, well, especially when you include all the extra stuff, right?
Well, yeah. But I mean, you look at Washington, there's a reason why some of the richest counties in America are around Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
What do they produce? What products come out of Northern Virginia or Southern Maryland?
Bureaucracy.
Nothing.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah. I mean, you go to Detroit, they make cars. You go to Silicon Valley, they make computers and apps and everything else. You go to DC, what do they produce?
Yeah. Regulations, laws, taxes.
Yeah.
All good stuff, right? Yeah. All right. So moving on to the next one here. Great news for law enforcement and American justice. Dan Bongino, a man of incredible love and passion for our country, has just been named the next deputy director of the FBI by the man who will be the best ever director, Kash Patel. Dan has a master's degree in psychology from CUNY and an MBA from Penn State. He was a member of the New York Police Department, a highly respected special agent with the Secret Service, and is now one of the most successful podcasters in the country. Something he is willing and prepared to give up in order to serve. Working with our great new United States Attorney General Pam Bondi and Director Patel, fairness, justice, law, and order will be brought back to America, and quickly. Congratulations, Dan. So, I mean, they're having an absolute meltdown over this on the Democrat and the Rhino side as well.
Yeah.
It's glorious, but what a great American though, because I don't know if a lot of people realize this. He has the largest number of shares in Rumble now, valued at well over $100 million, and he gets a gazillion views on there on a daily basis. He's literally walking away from millions of dollars to put his money where his mouth is for the country.
That's the Trump administration. Donald Trump is a billionaire. He's taking no money to be president of the United States.
Yep.
Okay, whatever he turned down in the private sector for $450 grand a year, and he's not even taking the $450. He's donating that to charity. You've got
Correct.
Linda McMahon, head of the Secretary of Education, multimillionaire. She cannot take a salary from the WWE and all her other investments while she's running it. So she's losing money. Dan Bongino turning down millions of dollars, and Pete Hegseth was making like $2 million a year from Fox.
Correct.
And now he's making what, 220 grand a year.
Something
All
like that.
these people are sacrificing personally to help this country, and they're being run down by the media. And it's like they're not Biden. Give me $40 million, I'll influence this. It's not Nancy Pelosi, who's worth $220 million, or Mitch McConnell, or, Lindsey Graham, all these other fat cats who are cleaning up being in Congress. Harry Reid was another one that he was smart. He funneled the money to his kids instead of himself. But the point is, these guys the Republicans are giving up money to serve. Democrats look at service as a way to become millionaires.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't expand on this one, so I brought it back up again because we're going to run a quick poll here. So do you support abolishing the TSA? So if you support getting rid of the TSA, put a 1 in the live chat, whatever platform you're on. We're broadcasting 8 platforms right now. If on the other hand you like being felt up by the TSA and you're not gay, put a 2 in the chat, and let's see how much love there is or is not for the TSA out there. All right, next one up. And we talked about this, holy cow, multiple times now, I come to think of it. And you've mentioned it, and I'm trying to think who the last person was that mentioned it. It'll come to me in a second, but Apple goes mega, $500 billion investment plan in America, 20,000 new jobs. Oh, I know who else mentioned it, was Pastor Sean Moon. Wow. So by basically, and you get this, Jeff, I'm just repeating it for the audience, by threatening to put tariffs on foreign companies, it makes a whole lot of sense for them to actually make their products here in America and combine with a very low tax rate. Trump's going to put us in the same area again as Ireland, 14-15% corporate tax rate. Why wouldn't you manufacture here? So it's a brilliant strategy, and I'm surprised of all companies that they got Apple to sign on for this, because they've been pretty predatory in using child labor and all sorts of shady labor practices in Asia. And they they were cracking down on them a little bit in China, so they moved a bunch of stuff to India instead. Like, it's brutal. I don't know if you've got any comments on that, Jeff, but this is a big.
I mean, companies will act in their own best fiscal interest when push comes to shove. We're already seeing with the Germans are saying, okay, we will make our German cars in America now, so we don't have to pay a 10% tariff on our BMWs and Mercedes and Audis. And, so they're going to look for the lowest cost of production and the highest rate of return on their investment. And when they're screwing us and you've changed the laws or the rules to say, yeah, we're not going to let you screw us anymore, they go, yeah, okay. It's just like if you have a business and you pay your employees $1 an hour, if you can get away with it, yeah, you probably do it. But then if they say, yeah, you're not going to be, no one's going to go work for you at $1 an hour, and they go, okay, we'll pay 15.
Yeah.
It just makes economic sense. But the way our system has been structured, it pays them in essence to offshore jobs.
Yes.
We need to say, no, you need to build that shit here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a brilliant move.
It's Chinese. They're not exporting products. They're exporting cheap labor.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so moving on to the next one here. I'm not going to play this. As you can see, this is a pretty long interview. It's almost a half hour, 25 minutes.
Oh, sure. Go for it. Come on.
Yeah, I listened to the whole thing today while I was working, and it's worth checking into, and I'll tell you all how to get there in just a second. But breaking: doctor targeted by Biden DOJ after blowing the whistle on gender affirming care for minors at Texas Children's Hospital breaks silence after all charges drop. Calls on Trump administration DOJ to investigate his case. I was willing to go to jail. So essentially, the Biden DOJ goes after this guy because he's refusing to go along with this jump straight into hormone treatment or cutting body parts off to treat gender dysmorphia, right? And
it's more than that. Texas passed a law saying you couldn't transition children, and the hospital was doing it anyway on the down low, and he came out and exposed it. So the government's response is, we're going to go after you for blowing the whistle on these guys who were violating state law.
Correct. So it's a really interesting story. It drives at the craziness to try and ram this transgender crap down everybody's throats when it's nothing but a mental illness. But another great example of Obama's third term, trying to radicalize the country and shit all over Americans and just do downright evil, demonic things. So if you go to X, Catherine Herridge, I'm not her biggest fan, but this is a decent interview. You can find her on X at C_Herridge, HERRIDGE, or just do a search, on Catherine Herridge, and you can watch this whole interview. It's a pretty good interview. And this part right here where he says, I was willing to go to jail, they tried bartering with him. We'll drop the charges if you do this, we'll do that for you and everything. And he was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. And he held, true to his values and beliefs, and hats off to this guy for doing that. It's pretty incredible.
And Catherine Herridge, you may like her or not, she paid the ultimate price. I mean, she got sacked for reporting truthfully on the Biden administration. They fired her for that. So she paid the price.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. She's got a spotty track record at best, though. She's been part of the whole machine of.
Yeah, but I think she's been red pilled.
Yeah, but it's possible. So this next one here, this is, so we keep harping on about these white women that are registered Democrats or identify as liberal between the ages of 20 and 50 being batshit insane. 62% of white women who are registered Democrats admit to taking SSRIs, which means the number's over 80%. I've got another super crazy one coming up when we switch gears into chapter 3, which is only a half a dozen tabs away. But this is so typical of these people that I can't even describe it. 59-second video. Prepare to pick your jaw up off the floor when you hear this.
I promised myself I would avoid the news, but obviously I haven't. Here's my one thought. I mean, I have many thoughts. Elon Musk, like, we need to X him, and by X I mean formerly known as assassination.
So if she whispers, nobody will know that she's advocating assassination.
It's gonna fucking show up. I don't arrest me. You don't have enough people to even investigate me at this point. I haven't filed my taxes in like 8 years, and yet no one's covered me. So I'm gonna fucking say it. Let's assassinate some motherfuckers.
I don't know if you want to
being investigated now.
Yeah, unreal. What's unreal though is that this is no longer the exception. This is becoming the rule amongst this demographic. It's I'm telling you, wait till you see what I pull up in chapter 3. I previewed it to some of the people in our insider chat today, and they were all looking for the group discount rate on therapy again. All right. So Stephen Fry says the election of Donald Trump is signaling the rise of fascism in the world. Dude, your country is arresting 80-year-old grandmas for making anti-government posts on social media. Maybe think before you speak. So this clown's from the UK, where they're arresting people for standing in front of a building and not saying anything, not holding any signs, but praying for people, or having thoughts that maybe the invaders should be sent back to wherever they came from. Literally thought crimes. And this guy wants to accuse us, Donald Trump, of being fascist. They dumped over 3,000 hardened criminals out of their penitentiary system last year to make room for people who made social media posts that caused somebody anxiety, hurt somebody's feelings. And they're accusing us of fascism. Are you for real? It's a minute 47. I won't play the whole thing, but it'll be enough for you to get the gist of this guy's completely inaccurate take on things.
Yes, one can use rhetoric to suggest that this is peacemaking and that all that Donald Trump wants to do is end the war. But I think Zani is absolutely right. This is a new world. We are talking about a very extraordinary situation now where the bullies have risen to the top. And I've called it fascism because that's what it is. It's a cult of power and a cult of warrior worship, and a rather sentimental one at that, and a total contempt for the old world order. And you have to remember the psychology of a bully from school. Bullies feast on the fear that they cause, and on the, think of Joe Pesci as you're talking about, in Goodfellas, you're talking about a gangster movie. Look at who Trump admires. He admires Mohammed bin Salman's Saudi Arabia, Putin's Russia, obviously, Lukashenko's Belarus, Erdogan's Turkey, Milei's Argentina, Modi's India, Netanyahu's Israel, places which are basically moving towards fascism, nationalism, and they don't listen to people like Starmer. So as long as he kind of...
Well, nobody listens to Starmer because he literally is a fascist. I mean, you want to take a run at this, Jeff?
Well, Starmer's an idiot, first of all. He's like, oh, we're going to send British troops to, Ukraine. Go ahead if you want to lose a lot of British troops. The British military, sadly, is a shell of what it was 20, 25 years ago. Yep. I served with SAS, Special Air Services guys, in Afghanistan back in 2002 when I was there. Good dudes, great soldiers, guys you're not going to screw with. And I suspect there's none of them left in service today. The Brits have turned into this namby-pamby Euro thing where, okay, we all, rainbow flags and all this. And it's unfortunate. And also, Britain as a country, I think, has 180 serviceable tanks. 180.
Wow.
That's nothing. I mean, hell, we have that many in repair at Fort Bliss every weekend.
Right.
It's just, he's talking out his ass. They can make all the threats they want. They can't back them up. And if they put British troops in Ukraine, there'd just be a lot of dead British guys. They just don't. They can't. They just can't back up their threats.
No, correct. Right.
And they can't make bombs. They can't make planes. They have no heavy industry left.
That's right. Yeah, I personally, my opinion is that the UK is lost, and that's all there is to it. So now the scary thing is that they're going to become the first Muslim country with nuclear weapons, and that's what we should be focusing on. They're not going to say
Pakistan was the first.
Well, fair enough. Long range, then, put it that way.
There you go. Without CBM.
Yes. All right. So next one up, our friend JJ Carroll and the Presidency and Democracy, the Real Threat Unmasked, 1 minute, 25 seconds.
It is true that many of the people in this room for 4 years failed to cover the fact that Joe Biden was mentally incompetent and was not running the country. It is also true that many people in this room who have used this talking point that Elon is not elected fail to understand how government works. So I'm glad for the opportunity for a brief civics lesson. A president is elected by the whole American people. He's the only official in the entire government that is elected by the entire nation. There's one man, and the Constitution, Article 2, has a clause known as the vesting clause, and it says the executive power shall be vested in a president. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. The threat to democracy, indeed the existential threat to democracy, is the unelected bureaucracy of lifetime tenured civil servants who believe they answer to no one, who believe they can do whatever they want without consequence, who believe they can set their own agenda no matter what Americans vote for.
I love that guy, Stephen Miller, for multiple reasons, but one is he is extremely intelligent. I love how he talks to the left. He talks down to them, but in a way that is engaging. But he doesn't pull any punches. Like you said, I'm glad I have the opportunity to give you a civics lesson.
Well said on JJ.
Good dude.
Yeah, and he's absolutely right. I mean, the bureaucracy, these career bureaucrats think that they run the show, they can do whatever they want. And I mean, almost every day I come across a story, Jeff, of people who are planning, bureaucrats who are planning one way or another way to sabotage Donald Trump's agenda. And they brag about it to people like James O'Keefe, not knowing that they're on film.
Well, you get, okay, these guys may have a 32-year career in federal service. That's 8 presidential terms. And at max, 4 different presidents, if every president got reelected. So they look at, no matter what, I'm going to outlast you.
Right.
And so the way you break that cycle is you fire them. And that's what needs to happen.
Yep.
We have term limits for the president. We should have term limits for the Congress.
100%.
There are no term limits for the civil service.
100%. All right. So moving on here, federal employee absolutely infuriated that she was given 48 hours to list what work she did last week, 53 seconds. Actually, Sean Ferris's comment on this, the absolute horror of having to prove you did meaningful work on our dime.
First, just tell us about this email and what it was.
By the way, here is that demographic once again, and I'll just make a quick comment on it. I cannot imagine being a young man between the ages of, let's say, 20 and 40, trying to find a sane woman to marry.
Like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m. And I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination. This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce, which is part of his broader plan to gut the federal workforce and privatize public sector services to ensure that corporations like his own can get more profit. And that makes me really angry, and my coworkers as well.
First, just tell us about.
I don't know if you want to take a swing at the entitlement or not, Jeff. But
It's seriously entitled. I mean, when I first started with the CIA, and this is back in the early 90s, dating myself, we used to have to submit what was called a weekly activity report.
Mhm.
Every Friday, you had to submit a report that said how many intel reports you wrote, how many cables you sent, how many traces you conducted, how many developmentals you met, how many agents you met, everything you did for the week. And I kept doing it even after they said we didn't have to anymore, because it was a reminder to me that if I'm looking at like Thursday and I called it a war report. If I'm looking at it, I go, I don't have a lot to report. I need to get off my lily white ass and go out and do stuff. And it was a motivator for me. And I did it for years, even when I was a GS-14, GS-15, senior manager. I still did my own war reports for myself as a slap in the face going, you've been lazy this week, get off your ass and go do something. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because
No.
if you get to Friday and your war report is blank, why are you here? Get off your ass and do your damn job.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, this is a direct result of the participation trophy generation.
Exactly.
They think that they're entitled just because they showed up, and that's just not the case at all. It kills me. Anybody who's doing work would have no problems rhyming off 5 things that they accomplished previous week. I mean, I could tell you 5 things I did the previous hour.
But life is not graded on attendance.
Correct. All right. So here's by the way, I think Macron kind of learned from Trudeau sitting there like a woman all the time. Now I notice that every time he's in Trump's presence, he's trying to sit like a dude at least. Yeah, but this topic, this video has nothing to do with France or Macron. It's all about the emails that Elon's requested from people. So 1 minute, 1 second, and then we'll comment a little bit more on this.
From more streamlined communications, there was that email to employees to give 5 things that they had done last week. Agency had then told people to ignore it.
You're talking about the last email that was sent where he wanted to know what you did this week. You know why he wanted that, by the way? I thought it was great, because we have people that don't show up to work and nobody even knows if they work for the government. So by asking the question, tell us what you did this week, what he's doing is saying, are you actually working? And then if you don't answer, like you're sort of semi-fired or you're fired, because a lot of people are not answering because they don't even exist. They're trying to find, that's how badly various parts of our government were run by, and especially by this last group. So what they're doing is they're trying to find out who's working for the government. Are we paying other people that aren't working? And, where's all this? Where's the money gone? We have found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud so far.
All right, so stop it there. I mean, this really isn't complicated. I guess there's not a whole lot more to comment on. But again, if people are being paid and they're not showing up for work, they're not checking their email, or people don't even exist and the money's going to somebody else, we have a right to find that out, number one. Number two, here's the thing with activity reports, Jeff. I used, as a sales manager many times, VP of sales, those sort of things, I came to the opinion that almost anybody can give you a report showing that they were active, that they were busy. But what they can't necessarily do is give you a report to show that they actually accomplished stuff. So I used to structure our CRMs for sales in very specific ways, right? It's a numbers game on sales. So I would have a tally of how many first touches did you make this week. So a first touch would be a phone call, email, maybe you swung by the person's place of business, whatever. And then the next one after that will be how many meetings did you get booked? And the next one after that was how many meetings did you actually attend with prospective customers? And after that, how many quotes did you put out? And after that, how many of those converted to a sale? And what I was able to do over years with, different companies, different CRMs was basically show that if you touch 50 people a week, you're going to get at least 2 sales a week, sort of thing. So if you're not reaching out to people, you're not going to get it. Then the other thing that we used to track was how many times did you touch the customer? So in traditional sales, 80% of sales happen between the 5th and the 12th touch. So if somebody sent an email, made a phone call, maybe left a voicemail, that's 3 touch points if they even got the voicemail. And your conversion rate is going to be pathetic. It's going to be well under 1%, like 0.2 to 0.5%, right? So getting people to get their head wrapped around, you just got to get your touches up, sort of thing. So what they're asking for here is trivial compared to what private business would ask you to produce.
Well, and it's actually trivial to compare to what government response actually. I mean, okay, I was a case officer. Our job, we had 3 jobs. Recruit spies, collect intelligence, conduct covert operations. And when you're recruiting spies, you would do 100 traces. You'd be lucky if 10 of them came back with, sort of interested. And then if you get one of those 10 to the point we call it a developmental, someone you reached out to and had to establish a relationship with, potentially to recruit them to be a spy. That is what you're trying to do. Intelligence, you have people that that are providing you intel on what's going on overseas. But it's one thing to say, I wrote 10 intel reports a day. Well, but if they're all crap, nobody cares. So we would say I wrote 10 intel reports, and this is how many they were graded. How many were graded good, excellent, or outstanding, which is what you want. We called it the OEG ratio. You bragged about that. My OEG ratio on the reports that I submitted was 70%. So 70% of them were considered significant. O's are very hard to get. Those were outstanding. That is one that changed government policy. Very few people get those. I had a friend who got one on his very first report he ever submitted. He got an O. Never saw one the rest of his 30-year career.
Wow.
But, that's the way it is. But, so that's what you submitted. You said, this is how many people I've contacted. This is how many new sources I have developed. This is how many intelligence reports I submitted. It was very, and this is the grades they got. So it was very, you could quantify it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I had people who didn't do shit, I would say, why are you breathing my oxygen? I talked to 150 people. Okay, of those 150, how many are developmentals? How many are now recruitments? How many produced intel? And if the answer is, well, none, then again, why are you breathing my oxygen?
So all of this stuff that we're referring to are called KPIs, key performance indicators.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's an old adage that says what's measured gets done. And there's not a single business out there that doesn't track KPIs across the board. Now, some go a little bit extreme and get into analysis paralysis. So Walgreens, for example, they measure somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 KPIs per day, per hour, per minute, that they're looking to see, patterns in the intelligence and stuff like that. But I don't know a single company that I've ever worked with that has not had KPIs that specifically tie to, if you do this, here's the type of results you can expect,
But, we've had I've had developmentals, people I was looking to recruit that I met over 2 years on 3 different continents with the idea of recruiting this guy. And, there's a lot of stuff that goes up, but when you get them, and they're good, it's all worth it. But yeah, there's people, well, yeah, okay, you met the guy, but so what? I go, no, it's a long-term process. And when I get him, you're going to love the results. And when I got him, they love the results. But it took 2 freaking years. So you need somebody, also you need people who understand the process, and that it's not, okay, I meet the guy, I recruit him, he's ours. No, it doesn't work that way. It'd be like whining and dining a potential client, and it takes you a long time. But when you get him, you get a $2 billion order.
Yeah. The way I describe it to people from a sales perspective, because again, you've got to get multiple touches. It's a process, not an event.
Yeah.
That's just a quick and easy way to break it down. This next one here from Owen is a pretty long write-up. I'm not going to read it, but I wanted to just make sure that everybody's aware that Zelensky has given in to Trump, and he's going to sign a rare earth mineral deal with us. So Trump is saying that we sent $350 billion to Ukraine. Zelensky's saying he only got $100 billion and he's not paying back 1 red cent. And Trump's been saying, we're going to get something for our money. You're not taking all that money and not giving us anything in return. So bottom line is we have a rare earth mineral deal that's going to be inked here in literally imminently going to be inked. And at least we're getting something from it. What did Obama, Brennan, Biden, any of those guys get us for the billions of dollars that we've given away to other countries? Yeah, goose egg. Nothing, right? All right. So I want to quickly mention these guys here. Y'all can, I'm freaking starving to death. And I showed these guys last night. So check these out, Jeff. Mike Sterling met up with these guys, or met them at SHOT Show in Vegas. And the company's name is Bridgeford. So BRIDGFORD. And
there should be an E in there, right?
Well, there isn't for the, I'm assuming it's a family name. But so Mike is saying to me, man, you got to try their stuff. It's like freaking amazing. And they had all these samples and stuff. He said, I'll do an email introduction. So I did an email. He did an email introduction. And these guys, I'm kind of ashamed to admit this, they sent a box of these things, Jeff. And I put them here in my office. And this is the last one. And we're not talking like a little box of like, you know, Pop-Tarts or something. I'm talking a box like this big by this big. And
are they any good?
They're friggin' amazing. And I wiped out the entire box of them. So I don't have any discount codes. We don't have an affiliate relationship, none of that stuff. But I can tell you straight up, really good quality stuff. And they're meant to be MREs, by the way, Jeff.
Oh.
So they've got a shelf life of several years. And I'm telling you, all of their stuff is really, really good. So I think we'll probably end up putting some in our truck. So if and when we ever get to need something, it'll be better than just protein bars. But wanted to, before we pivot to chapter 3, which we're there now, I just wanted to mention Liberty Club, the social media platform that Todd Callender engaged my team to build. We've been working 16, 17-hour days for, weeks on end now. Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time, we're going to hard launch it. We've got over 100 people have been helping us through the beta. Jeff O'Donnell and I will be going live at 12 noon on Wednesday to show off the features, give some people instruction on it, et cetera, et cetera. It's super fast, super clean. You can literally press one button and go from white to dark, whatever your preference is. We took the best of X, the best of Facebook, and the best of Rumble, put it all together. So one, I'm mentioning it because you'll be able to sign up on Wednesday. However, if you go to patreon.com/survivaldispatch, you sign up for an insider membership before Wednesday, I will show you how you can get logged on to this before the official launch. And everybody who's on this system before the official launch is going to get a free lifetime premium plus membership. So we've got a free membership. We've got a basic one. It's $2.99 a month. We've got a premium package that's $11.99 a month. And then we have a premium plus package that's $24.99 a month. So if you sign up for Survival Dispatch Insider before Wednesday, $9.99 a month, you get all of our daily sit reps with the links to everything that we've researched. You get an invite to our Signal chat, which is now averaging well over 2,000 messages a day. The volume and information that's being exchanged there is phenomenal. Plus, you get an invite to Liberty Club early, and you will get a lifetime Premium Plus membership at no additional charge at that time. So, pretty good deal. All right, so I've got a short 7-second message from our friends at Flex Industries, and we'll be right back. All right, so flexindustries.com. A friend of mine started this business a couple months ago. He's been in the trigger game for a long, long time. We're not getting paid affiliate money on this one either. Just hoping to see his business do really well. I've got a bunch of his triggers. They're super reliable and tough. Flexindustries.com. Use discount code SD17. S is in Sam, D is in David, 17. You get 17% off. He's got Glock triggers. That was the AR trigger that Tactical Carl was shooting, the 3MR. He's got AK triggers. A bunch of people at Survival Dispatch have his triggers in our guns. It works really, really well. So we are into chapter 3 now, and this first one is pretty tough. And I'll probably fast forward through chunks of it just to give you some insight into the craziness. But this is from Soft White Underbelly, and this is called a leftist rant. And this girl epitomizes what's going on with these white females, 20 to 40, 50 years old, that are loaded up on SSRIs. She's absolutely batshit insane, Jeff. Batshit insane. But these are the people that vote and run their mouths and stuff. This is absolute crazy insanity. So again, I'm going to play a bit, and I'll probably fast forward through one section or another, but it's actually kind of tough to watch.
World War III, USA, psychopathy. That's our legacy. Our legacy is terrorism and murder and genocide. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? Listen to how violent this is. Oh, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, like you know anything about it, Donald Trump, or the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets.
If anyone wants to hear it, I'll tell it. But yeah, when I was a little girl, I was like, it's definitely going to be a woman president. It has to be. And do you know how many other countries have been doing women presidents for so long? It's so dumb. We're so anti-woman. My crown keeps falling off. We're so anti-woman. I think I heard, maybe it was Norm Macdonald. He's one of my idols, one of my comedy idols. I think he said, this election proves, it was the Clinton-Trump election. Mm-hmm. This election proves that, yes, America does hate Trump, but they hate women more. Mm-hmm. And that is for goddamn sure. It is so anti-woman. And that's why I'm also wondering, why are you what would Trump's mother say if she heard that TMZ bus conversation, grab him by the pussy? What would Trump's mother think and feel and say?
Does she not realize that the Star Spangled Banner was written about a battle?
And Melania kind of forgave him. Just our whole culture is so fucked up. So fucked up. We need to start thinking about shit. I don't know what is going on.
It's embarrassing that a country like ours can't get somebody that's a little more suited to being a leader of a country to run, but nobody wants to run because I think
you have to be a psychopath.
Yeah.
Which genetically modified organisms. Yeah, GMOs. Ray the Wolf, I love you. I'm talking about you so much. Do you remember me? Peace.
How disappointed were you when you found out that he beat?
I was in denial.
When he beat Hillary the first time.
Oh,
That was.
I was so depressed. I said, I'm just going to pretend like she won. I wish she had won. She would have been awesome. Hillary, I love you. If you see this, I really do. I really do. I know all about you. You could have been some big hotshot corporate lawyer and like just lived in New York and like helped people with their hedge funds and like totally stayed out of everything. But what did you do? You went to Little Rock, Arkansas and like studied all the laws about children's rights and mothers, and you absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, this is 51 minutes long.
I watched
How does it
the whole
go?
thing.
I was just
Okay,
thinking
if
about
you
that.
do the whole
yesterday.
thing, I'm leaving.
No,
Power corrupts.
That's why
I
I'm flipping
cannot
through.
put up with this
About
fraud.
that.
And I
Why do
speak
we
for
just
our
get to
fans.
move a fucking
They can't
mountain?
put up
How do
with
we know
it.
that mountain wants to be moved anywhere? You know? Isn't that awesome?
We're an amazing species. I think the planet would be better without us.
I think so too.
How many
We're
animals?
the mold on the sandwich.
How many animals have gone extinct in the last
We're the
100
cockroaches.
years?
We don't really do. I mean, we should. We're thing.
She's nuts.
The goddess. It's a whole social engineering. The goddess has been demonized. This is the year of the snake. The goddess, that is a total symbol of the goddess, a snake. And in the book of Genesis, it's the snake that tempts Eve to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And I know what they're doing. They're saying that the goddess, like the goddess energy, is like bad. You know? They're like demonizing the goddess from way. Do you have children? Yes, of course you do.
2 daughters.
You
Yeah.
keep
2
going
daughters.
for the
That's
full
beautiful.
51. I'm out of here.
So were you there for the
Sorry,
births
I
of
can't
your?
put up with Psycho Broad any longer. And I think I speak for our fans. You're killing us, man. You are killing us.
Listen, we have to get the word out on how batshit insane these people are.
They
It's
know.
worse than people.
They got it at the first 30 seconds. This chick is
It's
a psychopath.
way worse than what
Well,
people.
no, yeah, but I don't want to wait another 25 minutes of crap to find out. I trust you. All because you suffered through it doesn't mean we have to.
Oh, yes, it does. If I had to
No, it
watch,
does not.
you have to watch.
I can just hit delete and I'm gone.
All
Jeez.
right. So, how happy were you when Donald Trump won? Do you agree or disagree with this New York City man? If you agree with this guy, put a 1 in the chat. If you don't, put a 2 in the chat.
How happy were you when Donald Trump won?
Overjoyed. It was finally happened. You know, I mean, I'm kind of glad they stole the last one because that's basically what happened, because it gave them 4 years to figure out really what the deal is and to sit back and now how to go down there and punch everybody in the goddamn face. That's basically what's going on, because he picked the right people. He's like, I'm getting everybody's going to be a goddamn pit bull, and we're going to go down there and we're going to level this thing, and we're going to get rid of all this bureaucracy, and we're going to strike fear into the hearts of not just people here in America, but the rest of the world, right? It's like every day it's like a win. You know what I mean? It's not one, it's the whole overall effect in every multiple direction he can. And what he's proven is, because politicians in Washington, they made everything seem like nothing could get done. Nothing can get done at all. And he's proven, yeah, it can. Yeah, it can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, he's here to do it. You know, he's not here to dilly-dally. You know what I mean? We want results. And he's telling everybody right to their face what he thinks. I mean, the first day he was there, he's got people in it, he's signing everything. And the White House press is in the Oval Office, holding interviews, answering questions left, right, and center on multiple subjects, which the last guy couldn't do, wouldn't do without a teleprompter, you know, so the guy can discuss everything. And
Pretty typical response. Good to see that. I see a bunch of 1s in the chats. I didn't think anybody disagreed with it, but anyway. All right. USAID's Haiti scandal is staggering. The U.S. sent $4.4 billion after the 2010 earthquake, yet less than 2% reached Haitians, while 56% lined the pockets of DC firms. The Red Cross claimed to shelter 130,000 people, but built just 6 homes. No transparency, no accountability. USAID and NGOs refused to answer where the money went, while the Haitians were left with nothing. The money went to the Clinton Foundation. It's not a big mystery.
No, it went to the Clintons' pocket.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, they're numbered Swiss bank accounts.
Okay, so again, chapter 3. So we have to have some funny ha-ha stuff in here. I am so gonna do this. My wife will be embarrassed, but I'm doing it. I'm telling you, I'm doing it.
Do you actually work for ICE?
No, not at all. Nope.
Explain the outfit.
It's $29.99 on Amazon. I would recommend buying a small if you're my size. This one's a little too loose for my liking. But yeah, if you want some entertainment, wear this and go to a Home Depot in a sanctuary city like where I live right now, Washington, D.C., and you'll see all the illegals. Not all of them, but you can maybe see a lot of them start to run away, and you feel like a group fitness instructor. It's really good.
And you actually think that's funny?
I think it's hilarious. Absolutely. What's not funny is them illegally.
There you have it, everybody. One of the worst people I've seen here at CPAC, and that's saying something. Appreciate it. Do you actually work?
This guy's a fucking liberal loser.
Oh, of course he is. He's in DC.
You know, one of the worst things I've ever seen. Yeah, okay, whatever. All right. This one's pretty good. I won't play the whole thing, but this is Trump on the climate hoax.
One of the most urgent tasks, not only for our movement, but for our country, is to decisively defeat the climate hysteria hoax. The ocean is rising, it's rising, it's coming, it's within 300 years, we're going to gain 1/100th of an inch in the ocean and have a little more beachfront property. It's going to be a terrible thing. No, it's a hoax. The whole thing is it's so crazy. In the meantime, our factories can't perform. They want us to use wind, intermittent wind. Darling, I'd like to watch the president tonight on television. No, you can't. The wind isn't blowing, right? There's television tonight, darling. The wind isn't blowing. And by the way, our house went down to about 30% of the value because we're near a windmill that makes a lot of noise, kills all our birds, and ruins the landscape. Other than that, it's a wonderful thing for the environment. These people are crazy. But they're radical climate people, and I don't believe they mean it. They can't mean it because.
So he goes on to discuss how we're hamstringing ourselves with all these rules and regulations for the climate crap that nobody else is doing, and that it's all just a scam, the whole thing. I don't know if you want to take a swing at it or not.
Well, all the renewables cannot be base load because they're intermittent. You get clouds, you get storms, you get no wind. Could they be something if you had a reasonable storage method, or if you used wind energy to create a hydrocarbon from the air? Yeah, maybe. But even then, they are not cost effective. You can put all the wind turbines in the world and all the solar. And I'm in Arizona. We have solar here.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, it is not, you cannot use it as base load. You still need spinning turbines powered by steam, whether that steam comes from natural gas, coal, or nuclear.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the next one. This cracks me up. FBI performance reviews are going to be incredible. So what would you say you do here? I would love to be a fly on the wall for that sort of stuff.
The two Bobs.
And speaking of it, so now that Dan Bongino has been named deputy director of the FBI, has anyone checked in with Geraldo Rivera, who's such a piece of crap, thinks he's a tough guy, and he's anything but? I'm not going to play the whole thing, but golly, Geraldo Rivera is a piece of crap.
I want to see the country burn. You son of a bitch. I want to see the country burn, you punk.
Geraldo knows everything, apparently. Despite the fact he knows nothing.
Dan, stop arguing over time. Now it's your turn. You have the mic.
Yeah, they did an actual study on police and found no systemic racism. It was the Department of Justice, their Bureau of Justice Statistics, but he doesn't know any of that. But secondly, this is again why being a reporter about police.
What, you have a 10-minute career as a cop?
Geraldo, you got it.
You've been running for office for the last 20 years.
Take a Valium.
Geraldo,
You've been
you gotta
talking
stop. Let
forever.
him-
People like Geraldo continue to pump out a race narrative with no data to back it up at all. There are hundreds of
I just
thousands
gave you
of
the
police
facts. You
officers
don't,
and millions
you
of
only
police
accept
contacts
facts that
with
you
black Americans
agree
in
with.
the course of each day. If there was a plague of police officers hunting black men down at night, then what? I don't understand if that's happening. Where is this massive body count we would see?
This man,
He's
Sean, this man is why they have that rage.
Data
this
to back
man
it
with
up.
this baloney.
He doesn't know anything about that woman.
He doesn't
know anything about that woman. Anything.
I can't listen to that crap anymore. Geraldo Rivera is just, golly,
He's dumb. He's just stupid.
That and super ignorant. Plus, he thinks he's some sort of tough guy, threatens people all the time. I mean, anyway. Tim Poole, I hope people realize the sacrifice Dan Bongino is making for his country with one of the most successful shows in podcasting. He's choosing service to his nation over personal enterprise. American honor is back. Well, I agree, and now I disagree. Ilhan Omar called Americans dumb idiots and is crying that Americans should not be allowed to speak. 33 seconds.
These people are just idiots. I really, I'm at the point
Americans
where
are idiots.
It's become really hard to have an intellectual debate with any of these people because the level of stupidity that they are displaying every single day is frankly embarrassing, not just in Congress, but as Americans. And the fact that these people are allowed to say just the most ridiculous things tells you that the dumbing of the United States has arrived, because how else do we get a Trump presidency again? These people.
Do you want to rag on that or carry on?
It's typical liberal. We know more than you.
It's worse than a
been
typical
outside of DC, but we know more than you.
It's worse than a typical liberal. She came here from a shithole country, Somalia. It's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt with DNA evidence that she married her brother to get him into the country and committed immigration fraud. I mean,
you're just being prejudiced against the LGBTQB brotherfucker community.
Well, you can call it prejudice, whatever you want. She shouldn't be in our country, let alone be in office, which there's no way she got voted into office. She's another installed puppet. And it's brutal. All right. So speaking of brutal, here's Kamala Harris telling everyone how eyes and noses work. She almost became president of the United States. 35 seconds.
What goes through your mind when you see this? You're here, you're now seeing it up close.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. But to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment. You feel the energy of all of the folks who are still here on the ground.
Goes through.
What cracks me up, Jeff, when he says, so what goes through your mind? I'm thinking, well, you're assuming she has one in the first place. So.
Air goes through her mind. It blows in one ear and out the other.
All right. So breaking news.
Oh, yeah.
Clint Hill, the Secret Service agent who jumped on JFK's car after the assassination, has passed away at 93 years old.
Yeah. He risked his life. He didn't know how many more bullets were coming.
For sure. So I would love to know what's going through Pete Hegseth's mind as he's looking at Macron like, what is this dork doing here?
No, he's saying bag.
Yeah, this is Macron.
You can say that, a fag and retard. Retarded fag.
Yeah, especially if somebody's doing something faggy, then you have to call them a fag and a retard.
Absolutely.
Donald Trump said so. All right, and this is the one we were talking about before.
I love this.
So 32 kilograms, that's, double it. And then
it's
2.2, so what, about 67, 68 pounds?
70 pounds.
Call it 70 pounds, sure. Yeah. All right, this is pretty funny. Bro is breaking egos on the daily with only himself and a mop.
Let's go. But can you hold them up, please? I will just... Nothing. I don't know. I just want to show you. Sorry. I think your friend doing wrong. Technique. I see. It might be very nice, but technique not very nice. You know better than us? You know better? Maybe a little bit better, I know. Yeah. If you don't mind, I will show you. I want to show you. I mean, like, not injury, like, you're doing wrong. You need to do more like this. And then you stay like this and like this. Like that. You need to stay like this long. What happened? Better, I will show you, yes? In this position should be like this. Yeah. Yeah. Like this. And then you do like this. Like this. That's what I said, guys. Like, it's a little bit heavier, but it will be much better for the future, I mean. Maybe we'll take, like, let's say.
Oh, what a great sense of humor. The look on their face.
Those guys are like, holy shit.
Yeah, too much. All right. So yet another woke, out of touch mayor proves to be amazingly unpopular with his constituents. When a large liberal city like Chicago overwhelmingly rejects such nonsensical leadership, you know that Dems have a major nationwide problem. Recent poll shows Mayor Brandon Johnson with an approval rating of less than 7%. 6.6%. Wow.
Unfavorable 79.9.
Unreal. All right. Then the next one up here. So, what if Canada invaded the United States? Do they even let their military carry guns? 15 seconds.
What if Canada invaded the United States? What if Canada?
They might be able to invade Minnesota, but that's about it.
Right. All right. Next one up is Brendan Dilley taking a swing at Ron DeSantis. I've talked about this at length, so I'm not going to harp on about it tonight, but he should have never partnered up with Paul Ryan. He screwed himself there. Couldn't win a single county after spending $300 million on his shitty presidential campaign. He's a less talented, less likable Jeb Bush. Ooh, that's tough.
I've got Blair and poll problems like the Florida sun. I got 99 counties, not a lead in one. I got the boot patrol on my Dr. Scholl's. Trolls are analyzed from my toes to soles. Some cultists to say he's Rhino Jeb Clone. Lucchese boots stupid and I pick my nose. So what if I put lips in my zapper toes or my campaign is dead and scrap for dough? You're like, oh, Zeppi, just pull out my whole asshole. If donors don't like me, you can blame Jeff Bro. Me for Shaw's knees red because a hoe's a hoe and Cardillo's tits. Well, I don't give a shit. So X accounts canyon up to me, my whack ass, and must go give him even more cash for ads. Fuckers, I don't know what you take me as or understand all the dorkiness that Rondi had. Yeah, I collect the fish, you know I'm no Top Gun. I got 99 counties, not a lead in one. Hit me. 99 counties, not a lead in one. I got glare and cold problems like the Florida sun. 99 counties, not a lead in one.
Man, he screwed up. So freaking brutal. But all right, so that is the end of chapter 3. Oh, wait a minute. No, we have memes. Oh my God, I almost cut out.
Oh, okay.
No, we got all the videos out of the way. Jeez, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Give me 2 seconds to pull this back up again. I'll go through them quickly because the first one actually is freaking hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Subject is a male human. Excuse me, but I identify as a female. Subject is a retarded male human.
Yeah, no shit.
Low life chairman of Comcast, Brian Roberts, the owner of Ratings Challenge, NBC and MSNBC, has finally gotten the nerve up to fire one of the least talented people in television, the mentally obnoxious racist Joy Reid, and he goes on and on about that. But I knew her ratings had tanked, but I thought they would kind of stay the course, but I'm glad to see they didn't. 10,000 illegals using the same exact social security number voted in Arizona's 2020 presidential elections. The reason the radical Democrats don't want an audit of social security fraud is because they're scamming off a $1.7 trillion slush fund. Insanity. We didn't vote for this. You lost the election. Well, sums it up. Government gangsters. So Trump and Cash, Trump and Dan Bongino, follow the money. Indeed.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Another aspect of the life of Dan Bongino that I think is very important is he has a great wife, Paula, and 2 wonderful daughters who truly love their dad. What an incredible job Dan will do. Exclusive FBI Director Kash Patel has fired multiple employees. Sources confirm the precise number of dismissals remains uncertain at this time, as the agency has yet to release an official statement detailing the extent of the personnel shakeup. Trump's government cuts risk of exposing CIA secrets. CIA leadership is discussing the potential risk of disgruntled ex-employees who might take info to a foreign intel service. I'm going to stop on that. I want to hear your thoughts on that, Jeff.
Well, this is always a threat when you fire somebody at the CIA. But what you do is if you catch someone doing it, you put them in prison or you have them executed for treason, and I guarantee it'll stop.
That'll put an end to it. All right. Texas chainsaw or taxes chainsaw massacre. That was a GIF, by the way, from you mentioned him earlier, Malay. And what do we do apart from winning? More winning. Check. There's an upgrade for you right there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That is.
But what's funny is you look at the guys on top and the guys on bottom. Guys on top, middle-aged white guys. Guys on bottom, men of color.
Yep.
The media will never point that out.
No.
Because in their narrative, all people of color are liberals.
Correct. Yes. And hard done by. So here's our message to Europe and NATO. Go fund yourself. That blue portion is what we pay. And the other one is what everybody else pays.
Yep.
Basically to defend them. Joy Reid started a new job today, by the way. This is not AI. I'm telling you, it's not AI. This is a legitimate picture. This was her new career. All right. Government agencies trying to hide their waste from Doge. Oh, my God. To all liberals who've been calling Trump Hitler for the last 4 years, Trump never censored free speech. You did. Trump never used the media to silence his political opposition. You did. Trump never threatened to take people's guns. You did. Trump never threatened to put people who disagree with him into re-education camps. You did. You might want to take a look in the mirror before you start pointing fingers. True story. Yeah. From Elon. Make up 5 things I accomplished at work this week that they can't really verify. I work for the government. Keep it brief. Streamlined the filing process, cutting retrieval time by 20%. Briefed a senior official on a classified project, earning a nod of approval. Debugged an internal database glitch that was slowing queries. Drafted a memo that sparked a new interdepartmental initiative. Conducted a discrete security audit, flagging 3 overlooked risks. Basically stuff you can't quantify after you just said.
Can't verify. Absolutely.
Yeah. Former VP Kamala Harris tours Palisades fire dams. I am so high. I can hear that in like a female Spicoli voice. No one loves Mexico like the people who refuse to live there.
Yeah.
The secret Republican plot to make liberals look like idiots known as Operation Just Let Them Speak is working. That's a good one. Remember that time you won the Nobel Peace Prize, then bombed 7 different countries? That was awesome. And so Joy Reid has to work 2 jobs, by the way. So she's working, she's pulling a double between Walmart and McDonald's. All right. And there's all three of these guys, hardcore DEI losers that were trying to destroy our military. Golly, it's good to see them gone. All right. A daily reminder that the USA became the land of the free because regular citizens had military grade weapons. True story. This is good. So this is Native American, Liawatha, 1024th of Indian. This is a health minister from the Netherlands. This is some dude who says he's oppressed. This is shit for brains, Joe Biden. This guy is a drug dealer and guy who assaults women is a hero or drug addict, I should say, killed by fentanyl. Bill Gates is a scientist. Richard Levine is a woman. These are mostly peaceful protests, and she is a climate expert. All righty then. This one here is quite obviously an eye test. I'm not going to go through it. This is S2's scorecard for determining if something is a psyop or propaganda. So it has different categories on things. As a question example, you score it 1 to 5, you add it all up, and it'll tell you if you're basically being subjected to a psyop. It's a pretty cool thing that he put together, to be honest with you. Really cool. All right, so we're at the end here. We're into the homework section. So what can our audience do in light of the main topic we discussed tonight, which was the US Marshals Service essentially either losing or stealing billions of dollars in Bitcoin that they were in charge of looking after. So I don't have a lot of good stuff here, Jeff, because I don't know that there's a whole lot that the average person can do, but I put a few things together and then go ahead and critique it and tell me what your thoughts are. But quickly, you could learn from this and maybe get into Bitcoin yourself and increase your knowledge on a little bit. You can buy fractions of coins now. So you can use Coinbase, for example, and you can buy these things. I'm trying to remember what they're called again. I've got it written down in here. Satoshi. So a Satoshi is like 1/1,000,000th of a Bitcoin sort of. So instead of paying whatever it is, $90,000, $100,000 for a whole Bitcoin, you can start like as little as $50 on Coinbase, and you might learn a little bit more about, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency just by getting into it a little bit. The other thing is you can dig into public records or follow X posts from crypto analysts tracking wallet movements. So the blockchain is like an open ledger, right? Like it records every transaction. And there's actually been people who've looked at, the blockchain and discovered stuff that the government was doing that you can't hide it. Pardon me, you can't hide it when it comes to the audit trail. And, at the end of the day, realistically, the average person's leverage here is slim to none, right? But the Marshal Service answers directly to the Department of Justice. So there's no mechanism for us to vote for people or vote them out or anything like that. So about all the average person can do is maybe support some crypto advocacy groups that are trying to push things in the right direction. Maybe learn a little bit more and voice, your opinion on it. But we don't have a whole lot of leverage in this one. What are your thoughts, Jeff?
Well, you can send emails to the Department of Justice asking Pam Bondi to look into it and say, hey, what's going on with this? Same with your congressman, but basically go through and say, contact your representative and your senators and say, I like what Elon Musk is doing. We need more. They respond to the advocacy of their voters because that means that's their freaking job. So let them know, I like what's happening. Stay the hell out of the way and let them keep going.
Yep. All right. So one last reminder, patreon.com/survival dispatch. You get an invite to our Signal chat. Like I said, over 2,000 messages a day in there. It's pretty awesome. We now have people from around the world, by the way. You also get every daily sit rep. So everything we cover in an episode is in a brief with links and extended commentary, those sort of things. For example, the first chapter tonight, I probably wrote at least 3 pages on the topic, and we just touched on it so that we could keep your attention through the first chapter. But if you want to read more on it, it's in the sit rep or the daily brief, whatever you want to refer to it as. You also, if you sign up for Survival Dispatch Insider membership for $9.99 a month before Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern, I'll send you instructions on how to get onto Liberty Club. Liberty Club, by the way, that Todd Callender hired us to build is the going to be the only platform out there that can claim to be censorship free. So there's no censorship on Liberty Club. The only things that won't fly will be pornography and illegal activity. But I've had multiple people, and they know I come from high tech, asking what algorithm we're running. We're not running an algorithm. Everything is 100% organic. So I think we've got about 120 beta testers on here right now. We're going to start importing members from Cloud Hub on Wednesday. So we'll do that in chunks of like 10,000 at a time. Jeff O'Donnell and I will be going live at 12 noon Eastern time on Wednesday. So if people have questions, need a hand, have suggestions, all that kind of stuff, there's more stuff that's going to be lit up. I'll give you an example. When we end this stream, which is going to happen here in a few minutes, the live chat on all these 8 different platforms that we're broadcasting to is done. And I've said for years, as somebody who's, hosting a podcast, producing the podcast, meaning showing all the elements, trying to steer the conversation, there's no time for me to look at the chat stuff in depth. I can catch a little bit here and there, but I certainly can't stop the broadcast to go and respond to something. So one of the features that we're working on right now, and if we don't have it lit up Wednesday, it'll be lit up by the end of the week, is that creators, including ourselves, will be able to have a live chat on Liberty Club with the live stream. But when the live stream ends, we will keep the chat going so that we can answer questions, take suggestions from people, all of that sort of stuff. We've got a lot of really unique stuff here. The biggest thing is no censorship. So there's no algorithm, and it right here, no algorithms, no suppression, no censorship. It'll be the one and only true freedom of speech platform. What was last night?
Well, unless you say Chris looks fat in that shirt, in which case you're getting censored.
Yeah. Right now I am fat. I'm sitting at about 220 pounds, and we're not doing a whole lot of physical activity. It's too big for me. But anyway, I got thick skin. I can take it. You can call me fat if you want. I think it was S2, maybe it was somebody else, but got banned recently for some ridiculous thing. I've been on X, all the woke code's still there. It's still under the hood. There is no woke elements or code or anything to Liberty Club that we built for Todd. Again, we took the best of X, the best of Facebook, and the best of Rumble. We put it together into a super slick system, and pretty proud. This is like a next generation social media site. It's not trying to be everything to all people, but it's really the center of the interwebs for no censorship. So that's it for that. Conflicted question of the night. So here's your hypothetical SHTF scenario. A series of cyber attacks has disabled critical infrastructure, disrupting utilities like water, electricity, and internet services across multiple countries. Question for preppers, for our audience: what backup communication methods do you recommend to stay connected and informed during widespread outage of digital networks caused by cyber attacks? And this question, focuses on alternative communication strategies, which are vital for maintaining coordination and access to information when conventional channels, means of communicating, are unavailable. Jeff, I'll take the first swing at it because this is something we're particularly well set up for here. So my main internet connection is a gig fiber pipe from Metronet. I was telling you about it. I get 1,000 Mbit up, 1,000 Mbit down, $65 a month here. But if that goes down, we have Starlink. So we took Elon up on his offer, and we bought a Starlink system after the hurricanes rolled through last fall. And you can turn it on and off at will. So if you don't want to use it this month, you turn it off. You don't pay the monthly fee for it, sort of thing. But if every time we have a hurricane, we lose internet, and then it's painful for me to work because I have to have internet to work. So now I've got the bases covered with Starlink. So I highly recommend Starlink as an option for you. You pay the $500 for the hardware, $400 I think I paid, and you turn the subscription on and off as you need it. That's a great way to stay in contact. I've got a ham radio base station over here. It's a 100-watt unit with a 40-foot tower outside. So I've got pretty good range with that. And then I've got something else. So I've got a Garmin Mini here, and it tethers to your smartphone. It's a satellite communicator, so it basically becomes a modem for your smartphone. You can have it send breadcrumbs to somebody, letting them know where you are. So say you were stopped somewhere off the grid in the mountains or something like that for a long period of time, people will be able to find you. There's an SOS button on the side. If you press that, I want to say there's somewhere around 10,000 people have been saved by using the SOS button. So I think it's $2.99 or $3.99 for the Mini 2. And then I think we pay $11 a month, but you can pause and renew it. And let's be realistic. All of these phones now, like this is an iPhone 15 Pro Max, has a satellite connection in it for emergency purposes. Elon is going to totally disrupt this market with a Starlink phone. And we're with T-Mobile. And right now you can get free Starlink on your T-Mobile phone for 6 months. You're kind of like a beta tester, but there's no more dead spots. We've got the entire country saturated in that. So Starlink, ham radios, and satellite communicator of one form or another is my recommendation. That's what we have. So take it away, Jeff.
Well, yeah, everything you said, 100%. But yeah, you've got short range. You can need a radio. You need longer range. You might want a ham. Ultimate long range is satellite. But be aware, though, with satellite, if they still require, earth stations, downlinks. And if there is a downlink in an area that has no power and they don't have proper backup, it may not work as efficiently as you think it will. But, and the other thing too, is if you have a subscription that you've paused, how do you unpause it if you don't have internet? So,
so on the, like Starlink, you can turn it on and off, and it connects the satellite. It's always connected
through
to the satellite,
Starlink.
whether
Yeah,
you're using it
I'm
or
thinking
not.
about the Garmin Mini and things like that. You
Yep.
probably have to get on the internet to turn it on and off. But yeah, you've got to have multiple layers. If you're going to in your neighborhood, a local radio will work. If you're trying to talk to somebody the next town over, maybe a ham or something like that. And if you want to talk to somebody across the country, you're going to need a satellite access. The beauty of Starlink is, disruption on the ground doesn't necessarily disrupt the satellites, but you still got to worry about the downlink. And it may have to go through, instead of downlinking in Atlanta, it may downlink in New York and then get into a network that way. But nothing is 100%, but having multiple communication methods is the way to go.
Yeah, that's a good summary of that for sure. All right, so we will be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern, just like 7 days a week. Got a really cool video lined up for y'all tonight. It's one we haven't played. It's not a really long one, but it's called Wrecking Ball. And until tomorrow night, please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.